Recently, we received a question from a viewer about depression. We at Know Your Bible want to answer your question, so today I want to answer the question, what does the Bible say about dealing with depression? When it comes to the subject of depression, this is not merely a theoretical question for me. It is one that I have dealt with on a very personal basis. In my early 30s, I fell into a bout of clinical depression that lasted 6 months before I found effective treatment. Even though I did find good treatment, it is something that I have continued to struggle with into my 40s. So I don't approach this question flippantly. I know the personal pain that comes from depression. Of course, there are different kinds of depression. Some depression comes as a form of grief over a great loss. Other depression comes as a reaction to very difficult or discouraging circumstances. And then there is clinical depression, which involves an actual change in your brain chemistry. All of these need to be approached in different ways, and it is important to understand that Christian people can become depressed. It does not mean they've done something wrong or that God is displeased with them. Depression is a reality in a fallen world. As a general rule, there are several things the Bible can teach us in how to deal with our depression. The first and most important thing is to seek the Lord and call on Him in your need. Depression can be very harmful because it makes a person believe that God has turned against them. When your thinking tends toward the negative, everything becomes distorted, including your perception of God. But we must look past that to call upon Him for help. I found Psalm 143 to be very useful in my depression. In that psalm, David calls out to God and he says, "Hear my prayer." And he says, "Listen to my cry for mercy." David says that his spirit grows faint and his heart is dismayed within him. He begs God, "Answer me quickly." When we experience depression, we too should cry out to God to save us from our affliction. Second, as we call upon God, we must also learn to trust His providence in our life. Paul assures us in Romans chapter 8 and verse 28 that God allows nothing to come into our life that He does not use for our good. God has a plan to make us as happy and holy as Jesus Christ. But sometimes He leads us through a winding path to get there. We must trust that God knows where He is taking us and that He knows how to get us there. Even things like depression cannot take away God's good purposes for us. Third, it is important to actively take your anxieties and cast them upon the Lord. In Philippians chapter 4 and verse 6, Paul tells Christians not to be anxious about anything, but by prayer and petition to take their requests to God. Paul promises that a peace that passes understanding will come to them if they do this. Now, it is important to understand this does not mean one can just simply say a prayer and all your anxieties will flee away. No, this is a discipline that is learned over time. When one repeatedly casts their anxieties on God and observes how God sustains us through such things, we gain confidence in God, which in turn brings us greater peace. This won't fix your depression tomorrow, but it will help over time. Fourth, we must actively guard against what goes into our mind. Paul says again in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8, that whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, or admirable, these are the things that we should think about and put our mind on. Depression always needs some foothold in our thinking, and when you allow thoughts to come into your mind that are not rooted in these good things, depression has an opportunity to take root and grow. Finally, don't be afraid to seek medical attention if you think it is needed. Your brain is an organ just like the rest of your body, and it can go wrong just like any other part of your body. Just as we wouldn't resist seeking medical attention for a gallbladder attack, neither should you feel embarrassed to seek medical treatment if depression has become clinical rather than circumstantial. God has provided many wonderful remedies in our world, and we should not be shy about using them. So these are some ways that the Bible tells us we can address our depressive thoughts. Depression can be debilitating, and like so many things, there are no easy answers when it comes to treatment. But treatment is available, and I encourage you to seek it with the Lord's help if you need it. I am Curtis Baker for Know Your Bible. To learn more about the Bible or to get your questions answered, visit us at knowyourbible.com.